Picture the everyday reality of living in a place like Singapore. You've got those bustling hawker centers, densely packed HDB estates, and this absolutely beautiful, intricate mosaic of races, cultures, and religions, all just living shoulder to shoulder. Now, being in such a diverse society is an incredible experience, for sure. But let's be real, it also means rubbing shoulders every single day with folks who see the world totally differently than you do. So, how do we actually maintain harmony in that kind of environment? It's so easy to look outward for the fix, but what if the solution to all that external friction actually starts with an internal, spiritual realignment? Let's jump into this explainer. We're going to break down a really powerful theological framework for achieving true, lasting harmony and see exactly how our internal spiritual state completely dictates how we treat the diverse people around us. What's really fascinating here is that the source text doesn't treat harmony like some happy accident. It's not just a passive byproduct of being polite to your neighbors. It's grounded right in this core idea from Romans 14:19, and I want you to notice the active verbs being used: aim and try to build. In a society as deeply interwoven as ours, cultivating peace takes highly intentional effort. We aren't just supposed to exist politely in our own little cultural bubbles. We are actively called to build each other up. And honestly, that is the bedrock foundation for everything else we're going to unpack today. But to really appreciate that kind of active harmony, we have to be honest about human nature and our current reality. When we experience things like confusion, anger, deep doubts, or fears, there's a very predictable progression that happens. Think about how quickly internal insecurity or fear can morph into prejudice, especially against someone from a totally different background or belief system. When people don't live up to our unstated expectations, man, we can snap so easily. And if we aren't careful, those internal fears turn into external judgments and condemnations. We end up building these invisible walls right in the middle of our own neighborhoods. To counter all that chaos, though, we're given this profound counter-narrative from 1 Corinthians 14:33. The divine nature is inherently peaceful. God is not a God of disorder. So think about it. If we're constantly experiencing internal chaos, anger, and friction with the communities around us, we're actually completely out of alignment with the divine. The really beautiful idea here is that to live a life of harmony, we're essentially called to be the answers to our own prayers. We're tasked with actively dragging that heavenly peace right down to earth, into our everyday interactions at the wet market, the office, or just waiting for the lift at our local block. And this brings up a super interesting contrast about how we operate. When we try to get our spiritual lives in order, we almost always default to a checklist, don't we? We think it's all about strict compliance with the rules, checking the boxes perfectly to earn our spot or prove we're good citizens. But this framework argues the exact opposite. True harmony is absolutely not about following rigid religious rules and regulations. Instead, it's about cultivating a deeply personal and intimate relationship with God. It's this massive, liberating shift from exhausting religious legalism to a genuinely life-giving relationship. Actually, relying on rules and self-righteousness to make ourselves right is portrayed as incredibly dangerous. Galatians 5:4 describes this as literally falling from grace. Just let that sink in for a second. When we try to earn our standing through absolutely perfect behavior, we're essentially rejecting the grace that's already freely offered to us. And the problem is, it creates this rigid, hyper-competitive mindset that makes it practically impossible to give grace to anyone else. When we get completely obsessed with our own rule-keeping, we inevitably start keeping score on everyone else around us. And when that connection to grace breaks down, it sets off this wildly destructive psychological chain reaction. It's like dominoes. First, because we can never actually be perfect rule keepers, we just fill up with internal guilt and insecurity. Second, because we can't handle carrying that heavy feeling, we project it right onto others. Third, feeling insecure ourselves, we actually get this twisted sense of satisfaction by making other people look bad. And finally, driven by that toxic self-righteousness, we become stumbling blocks for others. In a diverse, multiracial community, projecting our own guilt completely destroys our ability to be a stepping stone for community harmony. We end up policing our neighbors instead of just loving them. But here is the ultimate game changer, and it all hinges on one specific kind of love: agape. This is literally the cure for all those insecurities we just talked about. Agape is radically unconditional. It's not based on your performance, your cultural background, or how well you kept the rules today. This love was demonstrated by Jesus dying for everyone, specifically to completely erase our doubts about God's love for us. When you truly grasp agape love, it works like a powerful solvent. It just dissolves the doubts that feed that whole toxic cycle of guilt and projection.
And this is exactly where the good news from Ephesians 1:7 comes in. Our freedom from guilt isn't some prize we have to exhaustingly hustle for day after day. It was purchased. The tab was picked up with the blood of Jesus. And realizing that completely short-circuits our whole need to make ourselves feel better by judging others. Because the massive price tag has already been paid, we are totally freed from the very guilt that makes us condemn the people around us. It is just this massive, life-changing sigh of relief. There is a direct, undeniable pipeline between our internal spiritual health and our external behavior toward others. If your internal state is bogged down with guilt and insecurity, your external action is inevitably going to be projecting judgment. You're going to put others down just to elevate yourself. But if your internal state is a heart genuinely filled with God's agape love, the external result totally flips. You finally become capable of truly loving others. True social harmony in a diverse, multi-religious society is fundamentally impossible if our internal state is busy projecting judgment. Real peace has to start from the inside out.
When we're finally freed from that crushing guilt and filled with the Spirit, our lives just naturally start to bear fruit. Specifically the fruit of love, joy, and peace. And notice how these three concepts are so deeply intertwined, you really can't have one without the others. Think about how this actually plays out in a crowded, diverse city. A life radiating peace and love isn't just some lofty, abstract theological concept. It looks like the patience you have on a totally packed MRT train during rush hour. It's the genuine warmth you show to your neighbors during their cultural festivals, and it's the grace you extend when inevitable misunderstandings happen.
Ultimately, living a life of overflowing joy means completely stripping away all those lingering doubts about this divine unconditional love, which brings us to a really profound realization. Harmony with joy simply equals having absolutely no doubts about God's love for you. Think back to the fears, the anger, and the confusion we started this explainer with. Those are all rooted in doubt and deep insecurity. When you completely eliminate the doubt about whether you're loved, you completely eliminate the need to fiercely defend your own ego. And that right there, that is when true, joyful harmony finally takes root in your own life and starts spreading to your community.
It all circles back to this simple but incredibly powerful prayer. Lord, grant me your grace and wisdom to live in harmony with others. So based on everything we've unpacked today, I want to leave you with this one question. How will embracing this kind of grace change the way you actually interact with your neighbors of different races, cultures, and religions tomorrow? If you truly accept that you are already loved and unconditionally freed from guilt, who are you going to stop judging today? Take that thought with you as you walk out your door. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep seeking that harmony.